Well, it is Tuesday, and this is Trekland HQ, and we are live. Ugh, prove it. The strike, cons, and fans. How about a little clarity and sanity in the big picture today? Episode 316 of Yes, Trekland Tuesdays live with me, Dr. Trek Larry Nemechek, coming at you right here from the heart of Trekland through Portal 47 and our Trekland treks along the way. Looking for that clarity, sanity, and the big picture in all things Star Trek, as we do every week, but especially it feels like this week, episode 316. Hey, everybody, how is your late July heat wave Tuesday going? You know, I remember not so long ago, we got through a pandemic. And I thought that was something, but it's amazing what's been going on the last few days, especially among so many well-meaning people. So we're going to talk about that today. Are you new to Trekland Tuesdays Live? If you found your way here from the Seventh Rule, from the Pre-Con on Sunday Live, very much welcome. If you stumbled into me somewhere along the way, maybe you found us talking about, the strike and the ripples and some of the clarity that was confusing coming out from the SAG offices, the Screen Actors Guild here, as we're on the strike. That's what we're going to be about today. That's my theme for today. And if you are new, and if that's how you found me, that is awesome. There are so many Star Trek places all over the web, and many of them are doing great things, podcasts and live streams. I've always promised, since I founded Portal 47, my business for deep diving Star Trek, it's mainly about the canon folks that never get the attention that the actors do. Although you're finding out right now that there's plenty of actors you have no idea how much you have no idea about. And if the convention rules hold up, you're going to find out a lot more of that. But big picture, I've been all about the backstage, and that includes the business side of Trek, because that affects ultimately what we do see on the screen. Hey, why did Gates McFadden go away? Hey, why is that kid looking like he's wearing a Beatles wig? I mean, lots of things happen. And that's part of the Star Trek world as much as anything. And the savvier we've gotten about media the last 10, 20 years, especially with this thing happening, the more we are up on that and the more we're able to be. And yet when we get into times like these with strikes, labor strikes from Hollywood, that shows up just how much we might not understand. And you know what? Well, I'm setting up the topic here. It struck me a lot of, let's save that. Let's save that. I've delayed the welcome to everybody. Welcome all. And if you haven't figured it out yet, we've got an awesome chat community going. You want to make sure, if you are new to TTL, you want to make sure and jump in there, introduce yourself. We've got folks from around the world. That's why I go at this time of day. We've got a lot of Europeans. You want to say hi to them. We'll have some folks from Australia. I'm waiting for our first Japanese and Chinese folks to chime in, because it's in that same time stream, or maybe just some Kiwis, or some Malaysians, some Indonesians. I've met Star Trek fans. It was my great pleasure to do on the big tour we did one year. I had some Malaysian and Indonesian Star Trek fans who did not even know of each other. And they're just like adjoining island nations there in north of Australia, Northwest. So Star Trek's global. It's awesome. I'm glad we have a global influence here. And I'm glad you're here, wherever you're coming from, whatever your thermometer is saying today, because this is a hot topic. Oh, did you see what I did there? That was worthy of a 1930 segue. No, we're going to talk about the strike and cons and fans. And I've decided I'm going to break open the chat stream earlier than usual, because I've seen so much online, people asking questions, and I want to go, no, it's okay. Especially when it's so many well-meaning people all trying to do the right thing and support their actors. And by the way, who are the loneliest people right now? The writers. The writers are going, hey, remember us? We've been out here for 2 months already. We kind of are the canary in the coal mine here. I know we don't get to sign at cons, but hey, could somebody make a fuss about us? No, they're not doing that. They're all happy to have each other. And it was almost inevitable, because this is like the 1960 strike. Well, the last time they were both out together. So yes, jump into the chat, make sure and say hi. I'm going to cover just a couple of things, and you know what? I haven't even gone to look to see what today's, not kerfluffle, not crisis or controversy, but it sincerely looks like somebody comes up with a new question almost every day. So we're going to backtrack for a minute, okay? Before I do, I just want to say yes, it is summer. People are looking for something different. We're going to talk about the convention side of things. Number one, I just had a great conversation. I felt badly because my good friend Kayla Iacovino, who I've known way before she was Trek Movie, when she was just getting through graduate school for volcanology, not volcanology, was supposed to be my partner to talk about Landing Party during the seventh rule on Sunday, the live monolith all day long. And she was feeling under the weather. And so Lori Ulster, also of Trek Movie, who I know, but we'd never talked. So we had an hour to talk about Landing Party and some of the fun of STLV, Star Trek Vegas. And of course, we could not help talk about, probably half of the hour was at least talking about some of the late breaking and the latest ripples about SAG and the strike. And most of all, the wrinkle, it's not in the first 99 pages of the negotiating contract, but when you get down to it, the interface between actors, especially Trek and genre actors, and their fans. And I know that is not top of mind. We'll talk about this too. It's not top of mind when the SAG leadership is sitting down to negotiate, much less what they're going to message during their strike through that whole thing. But it's what has affected all of us, and it's affecting lots of people's pocketbooks. It's affecting people's businesses up and down the line. So yeah, it's a worthy topic. And I think we have more than shined the light on this niche in the whole greater strike and negotiations picture. And the writers are still saying, hey, remember us? You want to talk about this? No. So let me just try to catch up if it's possible. Let's retrace this. At the beginning of the writer's strike, and if you've got questions, go ahead and line up questions sooner than later, because I am going to see. Because there's one thing that's happened the last few days. It's like, oh, okay. And nothing bad. That's what the overwhelming majority of the conversation I've seen around this is positive, but cluelessness or confused or frustration. And yes, I know there's been some anger and there's been some trolling out there. And I want people to point me to it, because I've seen people talk about it, but I've not seen any examples right off, aside from the typical trolls that are still jumping on my Mary Chifo 10-second TikTok reels and saying, go home, you writers and actors, you're stupid. But aside from them, I've been spared this. I don't know, maybe my communities are just, you guys are awesome and you're savvy and smart already, but I've seen people, taking out their anger on the wrong. Let's be clear here. This is a labor action. It's a labor union. When employees of anything decide they have more rights and bargaining power together as a union than as a one-off individual, and it's something that is not so individualized that it makes sense. There are national, here in the US, and I'm sure across the EU countries and other countries, there are rules about forming a collective bargaining unit and having a collective bargaining agent, agreement, and all the laws that apply to that. And how, in the old days, they'd say capital and labor, but the corporates, they have the money, they have the messaging, they've got the stacked deck. And so supposedly the law's supposed to help workers not be the little guy who gets, stomped on, the ant that's stomped by the elephant. A million ants might just bring down an elephant, or at least get the elephant to pay attention, because there's not really any, maybe once or twice you see some radicalism, but most of the time it's people just wanting to live their lives. And that's what any strike is about. And a strike only happens, of course, when there is either a contract in place that expires without being extended and there's no hope of creating a new contract, or maybe there isn't a contract in place and there needs to be one. Either way, it's when enough people of a like-minded work category can band together and speak as a group, safety in numbers. And, that's the history, and of course, money, the folks making the profit, many times, human goodness and kindness does not often flow that direction. So sometimes people have to be kind of beat about the bush here, have to beat about the shoulders maybe, and made to follow the rules and regulations, just like anything else that maybe we don't want to, or maybe we're ignorant about, but we have laws so that everybody supposedly goes the same direction and is supposedly is all held to the same account. So that's all a union is. And if you need any more background, you know what episode to watch. Just go watch DS9's Bar Association, right? Lots of heroes in that episode, but of course, Aloysius O'Brien, he wasn't just a hero, he was a union man. All right. So yes, we had the beginning of the writer's strike. More than usual. Last strike was in 07, 08. There tends to be not disagreement when something new enters the picture. In 1930, 33, it was not being organized at all. And that's when you go back to the beginning of the Screenwriters Guild. The the Screenwriters Guild, yeah, now known as the Writers Guild of America, West and East. And I was reading doing a little reading there. It was, well, that was in the 50s. Came out of the 30s groups in the 50s. The Screen Actors Guild started in the early 30s. And there were some, early bird folks I was not up with, and I pride myself not just on being a, historian, but being a 20s and 30s person. It was Will Rogers, kind of thing. But one of Will's co-stars on the Ziegfeld Follies who went into movies, Eddie Cantor. And if you don't know Eddie Cantor, he's one of the early singing stars, stage guys who could sing and dance and do musicals and also, just overall entertain. Making Whoopee was kind of his theme song. Another Bride, Another June, and okay, fine. Had one of the biggest Hollywood funerals ever when he finally died in the 40s. He was kind of the guy that pushed over basically a few. Where are we here? I had this. People who were not happy with wage cuts at the Hollywood studios. In 1925, a group called the Maskers Club got started. But by March of 33, and the Depression going, and some of the studios teeter-tottering here, but also taking up the slack. People couldn't go out to plays and shows, but they could go down and watch a movie for a dime. And the studios were trying to crank that out, but they needed to stand up for that. So six actors in March of 33 laid the roots for the Screen Actors Guild. Then within a few days, they had 18 in total. And I did not know that Eddie Cantor was the first president of the Screen Actors Guild. When some of the big boys, they were all little names, but when some of the big actors came over and said, nope, we need to all do The Wizard of Oz, Frank Morgan. This meeting of 18 was in Frank Morgan's house. Isn't that awesome? Yes. But yeah, when Eddie Cantor threw in and said, look, if we're going to deal with the top actors, we need to work with everybody. So, and it was the 30s, and FDR was in, and the New Deal was trying to, raise the status of workers everywhere and making it easier to form unions and have laws that guaranteed all of this, and protected management and corporations too, so that everybody knew what the playing field. So there's the Writers Guild really got started around there. Screen, obviously, film, and by the time TV exploded that another paradigm, then that's really when the Writers Guild evolved. Took in the TV writers then. What happens next, 1960? You have the big double strike, and it's over reruns. Thank you, Lucy and Desi. And every time there's been a strike, it's been because the natural negotiation process didn't pan out. The directors are kind of the third big wheel of this. They're the smallest, but they're the third big wheel for Hollywood and TV. And we look back now. If you're listening to your Trek Files this week, none other than Cirroc Lofton and I talk about the strike right now and a little bit of Trek history and what's going on right now. So very topical. And we kind of dive into the 88 strike mainly. There's a great picture of Leonard Nimoy walking with the striking writers. But that was over the new paradigm, whatever it is. Is it reruns? Is it syndication and cable? There's a lot more reruns out there. Is it these video cassette tapes and these DVDs later? What is this cable thing? How do we pay and chart for that? Because unless the people, the actors or the writers or anybody stands up and says, excuse me, you're finding more ways to make money on this. That's cool on my work, but I need to still be getting paid for that. I'm still here. And you're making more money on it. That's cool. So we all should be making more money on it. It's too bad that we can't, repackage watermelons and cattle that way, or widgets in a factory, and everybody would be anyway. The entertainment industry, if you think about it, is the most heavily unionized, but it's the most secure. And what do we do? One of the few industries America is still a world leader in is our entertainment quality products. So we've got brilliant creative people and the people that are the grunt work. Yes, the writers and the actors and the crews and everybody. It's actually been a success story. And that is why when there is a new hiccup, a new technology, a new distribution, that's when these inflection points have happened. The '07 strike was over new media. Hello, internet. It was baby steps days. And now here we are, yeah, with the streaming that totally made all the old models for reruns. 80% of what we watch on small screen now isn't on a network with commercials. So we know that. We know that. And here for 5 years, I've been talking about just as observers watching shows, and we don't have even the popularity numbers that even the old Nielsen ratings did. But, hey, commerce, it was about dollars. Which commercials should cost more than other ones? Well, the popular shows commercials should cost more. Bang, that's why we had commercials. That's why we had ratings led by the Nielsen's in the first place. Gene used to say in the 60s when he created Star Trek, TV is not here to entertain you. TV is here to sell toothpaste and car batteries, and underwear and mouthwash. That's what TV is for. We're just going to sell you mouthwash and toilet paper with these things to keep you occupied. And maybe some of them will be a little bit better made than other ones, as opposed to the big screen. And that's why movies could be a little snobby all those years, except that's changing. So, yay. But anyway, streaming, and we see the second thoughts about streaming as a model that's going to sustain. But the fact is, people are doing more work and getting less money out of it. Meanwhile, the folks at the top are getting more. And that's what this strike is about. It's another big interruption in what the flow of distribution was. Cool. The writers go on strike. It's not really affecting anyone yet. And now here come the actors. AI is in this too, but the nuts and bolts of it, that's future to be handled now. But the right now is suffering. Things are hemorrhaging. So the thing that never happened with the writers, though, unless some of us asking the question, I asked Bill Wolkoff, who was on here live with me. I asked Captain Cisco, Carlos Cisco, who organized the Trek Strike Day. Bill Wolkoff is in the writer's room high up on the chain for Strange New Worlds. You'll see he's probably a producer out front too. Carlos came up the ladder on Discovery and was in the writer's room the last couple of years. In fact, including the year we haven't seen yet. But asked both of them, among others, what's going to happen with Comic-Con to start with? Because Comic-Con has all the big studios down there. And people said, well, nobody knows yet. Let's just get the strike settled. Not going to happen. But then if we have to picket the whole convention, we will. And of course, lots of Comic-Con is not about the big showy Hall H studio movies and TV shows. It's about comics and games and prose writers and artists, both in the small panel world and not within the small panel, book cover artists, the whole thing. And I hated to see that happen. And I didn't know if we'd have a rebellion in fandom, much less a rebellion in San Diego. And, San Diego stands to lose a ton of economic impact, much less all the people in genre breathless world talking about it. And the studios that work all year long on what their presentations are going to be, who they're going to spotlight. And as it got closer to closer, you saw stories about all the big studios not bothering to go down. It evolved to the point where basically, as I was hoping, if there was picketing going on, they would picket the Hall H. Now, many of the studios, including Netflix, have pulled out of having the big showy productions at all. Interestingly, Paramount Plus still has their 45-minute planned. Now, that was problematic with the writers not there, and you would lose some of those, but you still had the star power of now actors are on strike. So what are we doing? Well, if we have produced non-union affected people who can go talk, okay, the producers, are they going to bring in some of the creatives who don't feel compelled to observe the picket line? That gets sticky. Even having some of the creatives and some of the folks we love That would make them feel a little icky. And I've had more than one tell me that they would not cross a picket line if there was one. So there may still be a picket. It may be down at Hall H, and the other venues might be totally wide open, and no one, there may be no picketing. I don't know yet. They'll probably announce it here very soon. Comic-Con starts this week. And and STLV Trek Vegas is in 2 weeks. But as far as right now is going, most of the studios aren't there. I have not seen, and maybe there's been a story out. There have been stories out of San Diego about who's not coming and what might be the economic impact. And also people like Mark Evanier, longtime writer, comics media person, going, stop hand wringing just because there's a strike in Hollywood. It does not mean Comic-Con will shut down, because Comic-Con is more than movies and TV. And it always has been. And yay, it's why I never went for years. But he's right. It's true. And there will still be almost impossible hotel rooms to get. There will still be 150,000 people on the streets around the. It will still be so much Comic-Con. You just won't have that upper level glitz that all the TV movie folks go for, and some of the TV movie centric shows and blogs and live streams. What the media press is after won't be so glitzy and glam. And we will see what Star Trek is doing. Paramount Plus is there with some stand-ups and installations, and not just Star Trek. They've got one where the lead design element is 1923. It's the cabin. Star Trek is one of 8 or 10 Paramount Plus shows. They just won't be stars led. Okay, well, that's Comic-Con. Kind of thought. The back of many of our minds, not near as big to the outside world, but bigger to us here in this stream, if you're watching this today, is what about Trek Vegas? Now, it gets to be Star Trek, it gets to be San Diego Comic-Con time. It gets to be STLV time. And in the middle of everything else, as a reminder, if you are in Southern California and you want to do your locations trip and you've got days to spare, get a hold of me. We'll do a Trekland Treks. We'll go to 4 places in one day. Your favorite location sites that you pick up, you custom design it, and I will transport you, host you, tell you more information that will, not just information for a pop quiz, but really make things come alive for you. And I will wrangle your props, your cosplay. I'll help you with your camera, whatever we need to do. And we will plan it all out in advance. All righty? Doesn't have to be in and around the cons. It's all year long. Summer's half over. Are you coming this way at all? I'd love to see you. I'd love to take you on a Trekland Treks, your own personal away mission in and around these cons. But I know most of you, and I know a lot of people aren't going to either one, but you may be wondering, what about the Comic-Con near you? You may be wondering, what about it? What about New York Comic-Con in October if the strike is going? East Coasters, there you go. Well, that's what's been fascinating. The entry of the actors immediately made this more visceral, emotional than just those writer guys and gals. I wish it was emotional about the writers, and it was. It still is, and people have been supporting the writers really well. But now, I love the memes where you've got the couple of people, whoever it is, and the plainer one. There's even one with Kira and Dax on the promenade, and they label Kira as the writers, and Jadzia is being all Kira's being all focused and down like this, and Jadzia is up, and they just labeled them the WGA and the SAG-AFTRA. By the way, do you know SAG is Screen Actors Guild hyphenated after the merger? AFTRA is the American Federation of Radio and TV, not performers, artists. The American Federation of TV and Radio Artists. So coming out of the radio days and the TV days and being more New York based versus, right, the movies in LA. And then the TV actors kind of dispersed both ways. But anyway, they were kind of competing with their strengths each way, and then they merged about 10 years ago. So that's where SAG-AFTRA comes from and is. And that's less of a headache. There's different departments in SAG now, and there's the department. You'll hear the news folks on your network news say, by the way, I am a member of SAG-AFTRA, but I'm in the news division and we have a separate contract. Just so you know. Look how much we're all learning here about entertainment labor law. Again, You got to deep dive with us. I'm glad that everybody's jumping on the bandwagon to do all this explaining, and I've certainly learned a lot here lately. But nothing compared to what's come out with Trek Vegas. And I'm gonna run through this, and then I'm gonna start doing questions early, and we will do some paired analytics numbers because Strange New is doing sky high, and most of the world is in love with Strange New Worlds again, and that's cool. Um, and now we're all looking down the road, wondering exactly what Paramount was thinking when they canceled Prodigy and had nothing to show for. We'll get into that a little bit too, but um, 2 weekends ago, and this is from knowing a lot of the actors. This is also from knowing, a couple of the actors' agents, if not their full-blown agents, their convention appearance agents, right? And realizing that we have a mix of folks here. And let me just run through this chronologically. Realizing when the actors struck, several of the actors were wondering, what about conventions? Because to be honest, when was the last actor strike? The last actor strike was 1980. The last time, the only other time they'd been out with the writers was 1960, but forget that. The last strike of any kind was 1980. No social media. What do you really? The first Star Trek convention had been in 1972. 1980, the first motion picture had been out. Star Wars had been out for 3 years. Actors going to a convention was a tiny, minuscule sliver on the radar scope for the issues that they had to deal with. Yes, there were the old signing shows where a lot of the retired actors would, get their extra money on top of their little pension and their Social Security from signing at signing shows. But to the mainstream acting world, you did not go to a signing show unless you had to. That was the sign that you had retired. And you just showed up and signed your photos and talked about the old days, which is a wonderful thing to do. But from the mindset of a working actor, that's when you've hung it up and you're out of the flow. It's also when you don't think anything that the younger pups are doing, fighting over contract terms, none of that's going to apply to you because you're locked in at the time you worked. You are locked in as the original cast was in the 70s. They were still getting paid for one first time and 2 reruns. Do you think again, there's where the syndication revolution, local stations, even satellite, super stations and all that, cable channels showing. You could watch Star Trek 5 times a day. Was Gene, much less the actors and the cast, getting any of that money? No, or just a tiny trickle. Maybe Shatner and Nimoy got a tiny, pennies. Nobody else. That's why that cast were game changers. They were a whole new pop culture movement. They were demigods, and they still could barely pay their mortgage. And that's what tweaking the contract every time there's a technological change is all about. And a lot of this I know everybody's caught up with. I'm only repeating this because the last few days I still see people confused about what the implications are. Like, why do we do these things? Why is there a union? What does it do? What does it have control over? Even among people who are sympathetic to its cause. So no, the first weekend I was out of town with a friend who does this for a job, and the phone started melting down with people having second thoughts. Some actors saying, "Oh, I don't want to go to Vegas because then we're not supposed to do anything to promote anything." And I thought, now come on, if it's an older show, that's going to be fine. The contract is only going to apply to things right now. SAG's leadership only cares about looking as if they're promoting shows right now. Older shows, you're not going to change the payment structure on them. Now, you do, when you bring in a new wave, there might be a few pennies, but those folks are really out of the driver's seat here, which was not true. But along the way, we had folks. Anson Mount waded in. Good Anson. He's always trying to be the good guy, hero with the heart. Anson was wading in and saying, I don't think the legacy shows are a part of this. And then he had to backtrack. None other than Armin Shimmerman, who has been our labor hero for the last 2 or 3 decades. Armin was on the negotiating board for SAG for a long time. And in the 07-08 strike, he was the go-to guy to ask. I talk about that there used to be video up from the 07 strike on the old StarTrek.com. That was the last story we covered in the old StarTrek.com days. But he was the go-to guy. And I have been relieved most recently to find out that he has we have a replacement. Well, you can't replace Armin, but we have a successor on the negotiating committee for SAG, and it's the lovely and talented Michelle Hurd, who has come up, as someone noted, came up through being extras, doing commercials, tiny bit parts, lower level, right? On crime and crime and punishment, Law and Order. Before, but she's had a long career. She's come up the ladder. She's seen it all. She has really been a journeyman working actor, even as a regular. But being a regular on a 10-episode streaming show, even when it's a Star Trek, does not guarantee you, forget riches, it doesn't guarantee you work all the way through the year. And if you're watching some of her clips, I did not realize this freeze they put on actors in the streaming series. With that thing is not just annoying for us as an audience waiting a year. They're waiting to hear if their show is going to be picked up and if they will be released from some kind of a hold some of them have signed off to, which is insane and unfair. They can't go out and get other work because they're still attached to the show that's only paying them a fraction of what the old days a season would be. We just uncovered so many of these issues. But for STLV and our Trek family going, and our fans going, and fans spending money to go, and creation as a business, and the Rio Hotel. I mean, you start thinking about this is just our little case here. And there's very little exactly, there's celebration for Star Wars. I've since realized that creation is doing conventions for soap operas, all kinds of things these days. But it's in a big picture, it's a niche. And common sense, I thought old was old, new was new, the new was what. I felt sorry for the current actors who were supposed to be at Vegas. I thought, oh, well, they're obviously not coming now. What would be the point? Unless they come and can just talk about their life story, or people can ask them what high school was like. And yet we had people coming out. And then we had the back and forth over the weekend. We had Armin told me he was going to call and come out with something definitive. Then we did have something definitive. And finally, people worrying, and not just the actors then, but fans. Fans did not want to. 90% of fandom supports actors and writers. People don't want to cross picket lines. People don't want to do something they're not supposed to do. And that's, aside from everything coming down from SAG for its agents and for the actors, its members, and for the agents of the members who are trying to figure out what they can do. Then we got the thing down that I sanctioned, that I supplied, that I ran on my page. What does my page keep going away? And it feels like that had been out. It was a statement that SAG put out about what specifically. They said we would do carve-outs and consider each individual situation. They know that Hall H is studios. They know that Comic-Con itself is a nonprofit. They know that Comic-Con itself is not tied to the studios, but the studios use it for promotion. And they know the whole thing is not studios. There's other companies that have nothing to do with TV, that have nothing to do with actors and writers, or at least on the surface. But finally, and again, thanks to Michelle Hurd for being the person at the right place. Sometimes it takes somebody with awareness to be the person to jump in. And I've just seen people go gaga over this. I thought I was just spreading it, but apparently a lot of people still had not seen this message on their site to the agents, basically saying, number one, this is addressed specifically about the creation Star Trek. Apparently there is this Star Trek event in Las Vegas. And they say, we are convinced that this convention is wholly independent of Paramount and its affiliates. So number one, it's not by definition a studio promotion. It's an independent. And then after that, basically, any actor can go fulfill your contract. You can sign autographs. There's more rules and regs and FHQs to come, and for the agents. But basically, you can bring your headshots. You can bring anything where you're not in a struck work. I love these phrases now. And this is on my Trekland Facebook page. I should get it over on Instagram too, but I've also tweeted this also. The more things are getting fleshed out, but basically you cannot be in costume from a show. If you've got your own headshots, and some of them may have headshots from 4 decades, you can do that. Or if fans bring you any photo, in character or not, you can sign that. You're not supposed to sign it with the character's name or have a quote from the show, but or anything else besides that. If somebody walks up to you with a plushy Murph, although wipe that out. Prodigy and the animated shows Lower Decks are not privy to any of this. So no, if you've got a prop phaser or whatever, a poster promoting the show, and you want people to sign it, they can do that. They can't overtly sign it that way. That's a thing, which makes sense to me now. I'm still amazed that the old legacy shows, they see them not as money formula, but as just basic promotion. If anybody from Enterprise backwards is talking, that's promoting Paramount and the Star Trek brand overall. Okay. And again, we wouldn't be there. That's the core reason we're all there together. But I get it. It's an unusual year. We've been having a lot of these unusual years lately. So that's the thing. If an autograph comes to them that is obviously from a struck work, they can still sign it. So you can still show up. We're going to, licensed photos went away in Trek World a couple of years ago. Pandemic distraction. Now we're back to in the old days, you would go to a con, there'd be 3 or 4 photo dealers with binders and binders and binders of 8x10s. And you would flip through. And of course, they were smart. They would look to see who any actor guests were. And they would bulk up on those photos. So people would show up. You'd go buy your $10 color photo, maybe 20 toward the end. And then you went over, but the actor signed it for free because that was part of their deal. And that's a whole other historical lesson there. Somewhere in the mid 90s, the financing of cons went from the promoter onto the backs of the fans. You used to pay your ticket, buy a $20 photo, and have them sign it. Now they're paid not by a flat fee, but they're paid by, the chunk of it is how much they get per autograph. And then, photo ops are in there too. But that's the thing. Panels and Q&As, it's more or less the same thing, except a little more so. Organizers, panel moderators, and the guests are not supposed to talk about their character or their project. Ask them about life. Ask them about their life. Ask them about the actor's craft, the other things they do for hobbies. Ask them about the strike and its issues. That's fair game. But we're going to have a world where we're back to the 70s. What's your favorite color? What was your high school mascot? I mean, what was your favorite drama teacher? Maybe we're back to those days. We will see. And supposedly everyone is madly, I'm thinking everybody connected to Trek Vegas, to SDLV, but that's what's happening. So that had been a riffle for several days and seems to have finally settled down. And some people aren't happy about it. People are very disappointed about it. First-time folks especially are probably really disappointed. But then again, it's an historic year. And if you really feel like supporting the actors, and the writers are saying, hey, don't forget about us, then that's what people are doing as a supportive fan base. It's not our fault that we had 2 years of pandemic and then post-pandemic recovery, grope your way out of it, and then a year at Bally's, which felt weird. It's not our fault. This has been like the 4th or 5th crazy historic year in a row. But we will get through this. We will get through this. And then, of course, what really skewed things after that began to settle is this statement about influencers. That was, and believe me, I had somebody throw that at me, texted me. I'm going to find it because it was news to me. My sense of civics and constitution and law and entertainment practice, I was thrown. I'm madly trying to find this, guys. I was mad. I was not mad. I was thrown because this is the performers. Where are we here? Anyway, apparently there is a class of, here we go. SAG-AFTRA putting out a statement about influencers. Am I allowed to promote struck work on social media as a fan and not in a paid capacity? And they said influencers should refrain from posting on social media about any struck work, regardless of whether they are posting organically or in a paid capacity. What? And that's in our brand. I have Trekland everywhere. Um, so does Trek movie. So does Trek geeks. I mean, go down the line here, folks. Uh, and eventually what's evolved, and that's what really this last wave just sent everybody in a tizzy. I've had texts and letters from cosplayers, from just fans, from podcasters, from folks in other countries, people on their way to Vegas wondering what to pack, what can they do, should they even not come at all. Actors, for a while, were talking about not coming. Now they've kind of been reassured again. Some of the old school still may feel weird about doing this during a strike and just feel like they shouldn't anyway, and that would be sad. A lot of fans are totally disappointed about the thing about the panels and all that. Now, I would say, it's historic. It's like you're always going to remember the year that we were all in masks and photos. It's like you can tell your grandkids, oh, yeah, that was the year of the pandemic. And we all had pictures in masks until we sneaked them down and took a quick one without, because it was probably the last year name your actor was going to be at a con, and I wanted to make sure to have one good, clean photo with him. I mean, that happened. But this influencer thing totally threw everybody up. And this was just here the last couple of days. I'm like, what? Number one, I felt a little insulted because I'm like, we and our brethren out there have been explaining and promoting and giving a platform to all the writers and now the actors who are out on strike. I think we've done the best job of explaining the nuts and bolts of this to all these fan bases. Trek and all the fan bases have been doing that. Why are we being punished about not talking about the shows? Now, true, Strange New Worlds right now is promoting. People have noticed that they knew the strikes were coming and potentially, so all the actors from Strange did their sit downs with Will for the Ready Room video show. You see people right now for a few weeks are going to be saying this interview that I just posted with Jess Bush on Trek Movie, maybe. StarTrek.com even. People are putting a little disclaimer. This interview was conducted before the strike was called. So there's that. But this thing about, then it comes to find out there is an influencer category of membership for SAG. Oh, really? So for those who have like millions of followers and they want to be unionized for protection, I don't totally get that. That was our turn to go, what? We have to stop? What? That makes no sense. We're your biggest explainers, much less your biggest fans. And it turns out that was a category, and it turns out that that clip was taken out of context, or SAG did not do a good job of explaining what they meant by influencers. I don't know. You look at my numbers. Who am I influencing? I don't know. You hardcore folks. I don't know about the broad swath of the country, though. If only I had 150,000 YouTubers, like and subscribe. So I thought that had settled the waters. And then the last day or two, I've seen cosplayers now asking, and a couple reached out to me, can I not cosplay now because they're asking us not? Or even if SAG is not officially asking, should we be cosplaying? Is that like not supporting our actors and writers? And there's a cartoon that Kayla had that I've used a few times. I may have posted it now. All of these questions: what can I do? What should I do? What is being supportive? What is not? Is this convention going to happen? Should I go? Is it going to be boring? Am I going to be bitterly disappointed because we can't talk about their character and how they keep getting their rank braid wrong? Can we do that at all? The answer is, and it's on my page, I'm not going to use it here, but Kayla had a great little hand-drawn scrawl. It was a flow chart, right? A question and answer flow chart. And the top said, are you or anyone in your project/event a member of SAG? And if the answer is yes, then don't do it or generalize it. If the answer is no, do whatever the hell you want to do. The union can't tell you what to do. This is the bottom line to everything that's been going on. If you're a union member, you're there for a reason. unless you suddenly want to spit on everything and leave, in which case you would suffer the consequences later on. I mean, no one's going to come knock on your door at midnight, but I mean, you won't have the benefits. You can be kicked out, you can be ostracized, you can all that. But if you're a fan, the union, the SAG union, like any union, has no leverage over you, over a non-member. Now, they might ask their adoring fan bases, they might ask the general public, would you please do this? Would you please not do this? Would you bury the AMPTP members? Here are the addresses of the producers on the negotiating committee. Would you bury them in, oh, I don't know, nuts? Like, what was that, Eureka a few years ago? Would you do these things? Maybe that's a plea or a request, but they have no legal or even administrative leverage over anyone out here. They can request us to, and people still say, should I cut off all my streaming? Would that? I finally saw, I forget who, somebody officially from SAG said, at this time, we're not asking anybody to cut their streaming channels, you know, to discontinue Netflix or HBO or Paramount Plus. They said, we might in the future, depending on how things go, but there's a return point there. There's at some point where the income doesn't come, and if you do that too much too early, then you play into the claim that they have a wibbly wobbly business model here after all, and oh, they might topple. And you know, the bottom line here is when they're paying the CEOs top the chain $300 million a year, and a sliver of that would have fulfilled the writers' contracts for 3 years, for the 3-year term of the contract, and nobody would have ever missed it. So as long as that's happening, the claims about now their business model on paper might be crazy because they threw everything at the wall a couple of years ago, but they've still got enough. There's still tons of money in the pipeline. No poor executive is going to starve or be homeless tonight because of anything you or and a million other people do, cutting off the stream channel or not. So for now, I can't point to the quote, but I did see they're saying no. If you want to, you are free to do anything. Audiences, fans are free to do anything they want to do to support. If you feel like you're going to support by cutting your streaming channels, not going to conventions, not doing cosplay, not gaming online in your favorite franchise, if you feel like that's the way to support actors, you can do it, but they're saying you don't have to. That's what this comes down to. And then the best of all was I got it, and an up and coming the last few years cosplayer who texted me and said, do you think that the cosplayers need a union? Which totally blew me away. And I'm saying, well, is there a need for one? I mean, if there's a need for one, yes. And there are laws and regulations on how you set one up, a collective bargaining unit. Is there one or more people? Like the Screen Actors Guild started with 10, 11 people. 6 people, 11 people started the Writers Guild. I mean, you don't have to have a ton of people, but they have to have a shared interest. And is there enough industry around? Is there a high level cosplay industry where people's financial or other rights should be, they're either being aggrieved now or they need to be protected going forward? I mean, that's with anything. Would something, are models, fashion models, are they unionized? Would a subset of their union, is that a one-off thing where they don't feel the need? Is that an industry? Somebody in fashion world should let me know. I didn't have time to get into this, but anybody can unionize if there's enough people that feel like they need to be protected, their financial interest, their stake, or they're being taken advantage of by one or more employers. I mean, there's nothing magical about that. A union's just an organization. What's the old a trade union? So it's been interesting, though. All those kind of questions here at the tail end have come up, and it makes me realize that we are so off from everybody just having a basic understanding of how labor and management work, or how they're supposed to work. Of course, if you have more pro-business people in Washington at in the White House, the Department of Labor and the National Labor Relations Board, which was the NSLRB, was a growth of the New Deal, trying to protect workers, because you can have all kinds of things on paper and set up, but who's running it? Is it people who are, if there's somebody trying to sabotage the mission of that group, they can sure do it. Just vote things down or not have a quorum. I mean, there's all kinds of ways to not blow it up and still sabotage the work of something. But that's not what's in effect right now. And yeah, unions aren't magical. I mean, they can be magical when all the power of when all the many talk about the needs of the many better than the needs of the one. Well, O'Brien didn't go to Vulcan philosophy to make his point there. He and Aloysius, his ancestor. Anyway, I cannot believe after 2 years of a pandemic that we're in such a disruptive. I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean something where the norm was here and now we've had this. And the last few years, it dawned on me recently, because Hollywood is maybe the most labor, and not just the actors and the writers, the IATSE, the grips, the electricians, all the art directors, they're unionized. And then the Teamsters that drive, you see that unity mentioned a lot of times. And that's why you see sidebar unions, municipal workers, the electrical workers who have some entertainment locals. You see so many folks and politics. This whole thing about the Hollywood elite is just laughable. And the more you hear the stories and realize, we always used to say, oh, this is, Screen Actors Guild, it's only 1% of the top paid stars that you think of. 98% of them are unemployed. 60% of the union's unemployed at any one time because they're between jobs. And again, Michelle Hurd has been a beacon, and maybe it's just because Michelle turns up in my Star Trek feeds, but she's been a beacon, as well as I hope all of SAG are doing, about explaining these things to the broad public. Because I'll tell you one thing, at least since 07-08's Writers Guild strike, the unions, the laborers had been so much savvier, about getting their message out to the public. And I would say that usually that's because they're right. And the producers have been the clumsiest about it. And you know what? 15 years hasn't helped that. That's still the case. They're still great about getting their point out there. And if anything is a danger, the entire country here in the United States should look at this, because this is what's happened. The gap between lower, the top boss to the entry world, that ratio used to be 30-1. I've heard Michelle go back to this too. It's now, it's not 30-1 now, it's 500-1. Whatever. It's way out of kilter. And that's why they're doing just fine and the lower folks are not. It's not keeping up. So people, you might talk about elitist, actors and hoity-toity writers and all of that, or the other way around. But it's not. People cannot make the factoids about the SAG union rules are, they have a health fund. They had their own insurance. And in the years since Obamacare and the Affordable Care Act, it's been a relief. But in the old days, their work insurance was you had to earn currently $26,000. And if you had 3 $8,000 guest gigs and that was your year, you fell short. I mean, that's the way that. So now you see why the bookkeeping of this. Now you see why IMDb is not that magical. All that accounting for every little job and every little title that you use IMDb for as trivia fodder, that all comes out of all the easily accessible stuff that's been doing that. And not just for the writers and actors. I mean, residuals, yeah, but the crews, the ISA crews, talk to any Star Trek art folks over the years, the 12 years of no Star Trek, and people who wanted to keep working in that field, was rough on a lot of folks. Oh, good. I mean, half the time the cry from actors, writers, anybody in Hollywood is, "Oh my God, I made my health pension. I made my health max. I got to my health line." So yes, I'm always preaching to follow the creatives, and here's a time when you should. Michelle Hurd is a worthy successor to Armin. I'm so glad she's there. It's not that she's, an angel of light and a hero, although she is. What I thought part of this also, especially around the convention attending and especially around the influence, I had the feeling that the leadership of Screen Actors Guild, when you say conventions, when you say they're thinking of the Hall H model. And I don't think they're thinking about the one-off actors who get themselves to Vegas on their own dime and hopefully are going to make it back. The little ones who sign I say little ones, especially our aging actors. Nothing in this contract is really going to bring them anything new. nothing they're representing when they go on their own, whether it's the Hollywood signing show or it's Trek Vegas, is going to bring them in. It's there on their own dime. They're not, the studio is not getting a thing out of them being there, which is what I thought the common sense was. I was proven wrong, but I think part of this is good intentioned people talking about all that long list of Comic Cons and signing shows and up and premieres, red carpets. They had a list of 20 events that you think, oh, okay, it's my. I think they're all thinking the Hall H level, and I think they're all thinking when it's studio provided, when the studio scoops up all a Trek cast and plops them down at New York Comic Con or San Diego Comic Con, or even Trek Vegas, that it's on the studio's dime and they're all there on the studio's script, basically. And occasionally they might go a little off script if they have the clout, but that's a thing. And I don't think they were particularly, because it's a sliver, gang. It's most people are out there, they're working actors, but and they're older members. I felt really badly because I don't think they were intentionally, trying to wipe them out of income. I think they were it was just not a big bell on it is now. It is now. There's more to the convention appearance situation than showing up on the IMDb boat after your Hall H appearance, or all the media, the media rounds, the media tables, the sit downs with the press after your Hall H. I mean, there's more to being an actor with your fans than going through a studio lens, and they're savvy with that now. And it's like everything else. It's just like the pandemic. This has been a learning process. Again, we've never been here before. The last time they were on strike was 1980. Did we have social media? No. Did we have the internet? No. A month or two later, there might be some cool stuff in your club's newsletter. Maybe in a month, maybe Interstat would have some headlines from Dixie's clippings from the Hollywood trades about the strike. Oh, yes, kids. But we live in this accelerated world of 24/7 media. And, again, the writer's strike was baby steps in that direction. This is we're living it. And the good news is, so far, I think the writers and the actors are winning the messaging war. And not just because people are starry-eyed over the actors, they get it. What I was hoping would not happen is not so much the rest of the country squawk about, oh, the Hollywood elite. I think they squawk about they still have labor union negotiated, items, features, payments. It's set down in paper so it can't be abused. And if it is abused, then there are fines against the employer. That's the way the whole country used to be. And so much of the rest of the country has been hollowed out and lost that. So I'm hoping that people sitting at home everywhere else are going, oh, what, they feel like they're entitled to a bathroom break? It's like, no. It's not that they're not. You are. And what happened to yours? And that's a whole thing about union membership and the hollowing out of America and what's happened to the middle class and yada, yada, yada. What's amazing to me is this strike has brought up issues all the way from things like that on the personal end, all the way up to that big boss to worker employment ratio, the income ratio, which is tracked, which is generally known, which we can go back to the 1920s at least, if not theoretically, and go further back. But people track that. The last 50 years, it's been government statistics. We can track that and see, just like that the wage gap, that how it's been hollowed out, and we're at the widest wage disparity since the Roaring 20s, right before the crash of the Depression. That's been hanging for 10 years. And is part of the fact that we have safety programs in place somehow still, we didn't go off the cliff like the 1929 crash. So congratulations, you're still alive. Maybe you wish you just, you weren't. I'm not getting morbid. But it occurred to me that it would be amazing if the next big pendulum swing of economics, which started in the 80s with trickle-down theory and the glamorizing of the rich and all that, and everybody wanted to be rich whether they were or not. And someday I am going to be. And that kind of started pervading people's, instead of the we're all in this together, let's all stand up and speak for ourselves. It would be amazing if the first big turn of this ship back toward more equity and fairness in incomes and jobs and industry, and lessening that ivory tower gap, that obscene gap between what the bosses make and what their entry-level workers make. It would be amazing if the first dent, if turning that battleship began with a Hollywood strike. But it very well could. We'll see, though. We've got a long ways to go. And, of course, stories like Hollywood producers saying, well, our strategy all along has been to starve out the writers. And when they start losing their homes and apartments, then we'll get them. That's not doing anybody any good. And then when you see people talking about maybe the Federal Trade Commission and maybe the Department of Labor and the Department of Commerce should get involved and have some investigations and some, not showplace investigations, but some actual real do the shoe leather and collect facts and data and witnesses. It would just be amazing if this little Hollywood strike of the Hollywood elites was the first shot across the bow of reversing this trend of the last, I say 40 years. That's put so much pain into the vast bulk of America's daily life. And you thought you were just showing up to talk about Star Trek today. I'm going to go back through the chat now. Maybe I should, I meant to do this earlier, but I just felt like getting some of the old-time homework timeline and what's been going on the last few days. And see, here's the thing. I decided that I wasn't keeping up with it. There are people asking questions. There are situations popping up that I'm not laughing, I'm not deriding, I'm just amazed that people might have that question, or I'm amazed the situation came up. So that's what I want to see what's in our chat today, because it will be, we've been at it over a little over an hour. I got started halfway on time today, and we will see. I just cannot wait to see if anybody's got sincere questions still that I didn't get to somehow, because I wake up every day and I see more people talking about things I hadn't even considered or thought about, or things that are happening that need a reaction, or they need a statement from SAG about whatever. Yeah, let's do that. I can, no, you know what? I'll do, we will look, I'll tell you real quickly. Strange New Worlds is doing just fine. I'm going to look at the parrots here real fast via TV Geek. The actual parrot analytics site, the company that's been measuring, again, trying to fill in this thing that we thought was just an oddity. Oh, let's just see what's most popular this week. That is what people get paid by. And the fact that the studios have kept this, we know the numbers and you don't, and we're never going to let anything like those damn Nielsen spring up again. They're fighting tooth and nail against any transparency. Criticize the Nielsen program, the system at the time, and maybe what they're trying to do now even, and compete with Parrot. But at least everybody agreed with it, and everybody used it, fair or foul. And if the AC Nielsen company had ever, as a it's kind of like the American dollar being the currency of record for the country, for the globe, in many places. Nielsen's was the currency of record all those years in the network world, when they had 95% of the TV, not 20% of the TV. But here's the thing. So Star Trek Picard is going down on its trend. It's not fresh, but it's still up its demand score, the average demand expression. The Parrot is measuring the online appearance, fans, critics, studios, the promotion, the retweets, everything about it. They scour the internet for everything. And not just in the States, but for hundreds of shows here and around the world, dozens of markets and countries. And we've been following this since the beginning of Discovery, like 5 or 6 months into TLT, Tomatoless and Tomato. And, well, Picard's down a little. It was peaking at number, out of the 500-600 shows, it's still in the outstanding upper 2.5%. And if that's Picard recently, Strange New in the US, it's trending up, and that gets very hot when it drops, and then it's down and down. But yeah, it peaked up what has it been? It's peaked at 15 in the last week. So number 15 out of everything that's out there, all these streaming shows flooding the world and not paying their writers, actors, and crews. Well, they're just doing it for a tiny strip of the country. So yeah, they're fine. You know what? I'm looking here. nobody's going to go anywhere. Strange New is on an upswing. Of course it is. More people are finding it. That's awesome. What am I trying to see here? The peak demand was number 15. That was up 2% in the last week. The trend line just overall has been amazing. Over 30 days, the trend line for Strange New Worlds is 73%. That's kind of a high trend line. I think they're going to be just fine. In fact, Strange New, I take that back. Strange New is in the exceptional category of all shows. They're in the upper 0.2%. Strange New is. So yeah, Paramount Plus is not going to. The people are talking about it. They're finding a way to monetize it. That's not gonna go away. Oh yeah, I had that there. Let's do questions. I'm just gonna say before we do questions real fast, and before we might lose some folks because this is normally where we would make our break. I just want to thank everybody for being here. I want to thank by name all of our Patreon folks. Thank you so much. We're just about, we're midway through the month. So our TTL Club, thank you so much, Diana Hopkins, Robin Wilson, Lawrence Todd, and Marie Siegel, Justin Porteous, Galinda Bruton, Chris Jiggins, Pranakasha Productions, Comedy Forecast, and Andrew Jazimski, thank you. And then our live wires. Robert McLean, Byron Bailey, J.R. Poole, Albert Gunn Johnson, hey, Alan Hoensi. Sorry, Alan. How many times I say your name and I stumble? Alan Hoensi, Dave Gregory, Tobias Rex, Donna Runyon, and Casey Shafsky. I was just talking to Casey the other day. Hopefully seeing him at Vegas too. Hopefully seeing so many of these folks at Vegas. And you know what? If we're not, again, we've got the magic of virtual here to connect every week, no matter what's going on. Thank you. And if you're wondering what's going on here, I have a simple Patreon, $5, $10 a month. It just helps me do a little more here. We're gradually creeping up our quality. Scott and Kyle do a great job with the re-edits of this. And Second Opinion is going when there's fresh episodes of any show I hope you're watching or something big in the news to react to. Second Opinion Saturdays, that's the hashtag. And Trekland Tuesdays live. And I have more Cadet Alice's to put up. Oh, we didn't even talk about Prodigy. Oh, can I say, if you're already done looking at patreon.com/Trekland Live, I'll say that in a minute. Just not to forget that our Prodigy crusade is still going. Hashtag Save Star Trek Prodigy. Thinking it's going to land somewhere. But thinking that the Hagemans and Aaron Walke are all going to be in Vegas, for instance. Thinking that, is Mike McMahon going to be in Vegas? Here's the thing. Lower Decks and Prodigy, wherever it winds up going, they're not under any of these strike restrictions. They should be. The writers should be part of SAG, but they're in a sub. I'm not knocking their quality. The quality of animation writing today, they just got nominated for another couple of awards from the TV critics. They should all be in SAG together, but because they're not, and they're in the animation group, they had a contract negotiation last year, made some gains, but they're not part of any of the strike action right now. They don't work for Struck Works, is the term now. So you can go to Vegas. You can see them at San Diego, maybe. Wherever you can, talk online. They will talk about what's going on. Of course, everyone with Prodigy is talking about finding it a new home. Everyone on Prodigy is going, how stupid it was not to be on the Paramount Plus site right now, since they may, and the memes going around about, did they not realize they're going to have huge gaps between the strike and removing Prodigy? You might have needed that. You could have used those other 20 weeks of half-hour episodes. Just saying. But yeah, animation is not part of this. They're in sympathy. Oh, by golly, yes, they are. And a lot of the people writing, some of the SAG voice actors, that is a whole sidebar. What about the SAG people with voice actor contracts? Are they signatories to the producers, to the AMPTP, American Motion Picture and Television Producers? Are they signatories in their negotiating group or not? Are they independent? And that's another thing. Remember, this is only the producers who have the big studios. If it's an independent production, I think, somebody check me on this. The most basic definition is writers and actors can work in independent productions And there's guidelines. There are you can look at the SAG site and find all the not exclusions, the exceptions for work they can do right now. And voice acting is one of them, unless they're ultimately working for a signatory to one of the one of the big producing houses. See how much fun this is? And it's the same thing, and we talk about the actors, especially now. We used to talk about the writers, but the directors settled, and now they're being ridiculed because they settled for little, because they never thought that. I saw a great analysis of this, and I tweeted it and shared the thread. Supposedly, the outsiders are saying that the DGA never thought that the producers would let the actors strike. And the directors are totally caught flat-footed, because no matter what their contract says, they're not working now either. So, and that they settled for fewer gains than they should have if they had all stuck together. And then meanwhile, we're global. Hello, global folks. You're talking about all the different countries where they've had solidarity issues with the directors and actors and writers and crews, even in other countries, Canada, UK. But I do know that there's production going on in Canada. Their producers have equitable contracts with, there's not a strike situation because people aren't banging heads over issues. So they're working. Yes. So, but a lot of places, the whole scam issue, especially with the writers, about not having Hollywood producers trying to hire South Korean, did you see that? Or much less English, Australian, Canadian writers. They all have, if an American producer comes calling, or someone who is maybe trying to hide their financial HQ and pretend that they're not American, but they are, if they're a signatory to the AMPTP group, most of the other countries are saying, don't come to us looking for scabs. We will not be your strike breakers. So there's some international solidarity too. International writers of the world unite. Let's look and see what you guys are coming up with. Maybe I covered some. Every day I get up and I see more questions that could be answered, more questions that don't have an answer yet, and maybe eventually they get an answer. We will see. What is totally not having to do with anything of a thing, but this is funny, JR. I just thank you, made me laugh. I'm going to take a drink. Oh, yeah. You get into this with school teachers, you get into this with police and fire and EMS. If they're a public good, they have bargaining groups. They bargain for their contract. They just are not allowed to go on strike. And talk about a radical moment. If somebody is so pushed that they do go on strike. Wasn't there like a Boston police strike in 1920? And that's what propelled Calvin Coolidge to national prominence, was he put down the... Sorry, I went into the history weeds, guys. I warned you. Well, hello, Richard. What do you mean, sorry? We're just glad to see you back and have you here. Cairo, this is a fascinating concept. You have forced unions. So, of course, if you're being force-fed something, you're not as enthusiastic about it as you would otherwise. But yeah, you're big enough to see a few sides, and it's that from what you can see, yeah, they're not even their publicists should either be fired or commit suicide. No, wait, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that. No one should commit. Oh boy, don't harangue me there. Their publicists should either lead, follow, or get out of the way. How about that? And I'm sure the folks running the social media folks for these networks and places, don't bash the poor social media folks. They're just doing what their bosses are doing. They're just making a job. They're having a job too, and trying to go home and look at their kids at night. Yeah. Oh. Yeah, I think I sang something. Okay. So all old life support livers, everybody, if you knew the drinking game from Life Support Live, you get to drink. if Ollie or I sang. It was a drinking moment. Hey, Sarge, it's good to have you with us here on Tuesday. Hey, Andy. Very good. Yeah, I don't care about Twitch much. I mean, I care about Twitchers, Christoph, but I haven't really pushed it. Okay, I have news for you, USM 0506. If you tell people you're lurking, you're not lurking. just letting you know. Okay. Good idea, Christoph. Anytime anyone mentions the word strike, we send a drink to the picket line. Now, how do you get it there and who do you tag? Because people fight over it then. These days, I think people just want water. I don't know how much an alcoholic drink's going to do them. Some Gatorade, maybe. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It was great to have Sirach. And Sirach reached out to me and said he wanted to do a Trek Files one time. And we wound up doing one about, we did one about strikes in Trek history and today. And, well, we recorded another episode. I'll just let you guys find out about it when we get there. I can vague live as much as anybody else can. Vague cast? What is that? Vague pod? All right. Oh. Hey, Johnny Beal. Johnny, are you new to Tuesdays with us? If not, welcome. But you're welcome. See, I didn't set myself up to be Mr. Explainer here for the universe. That's the way it kind of came off. Posting some clarity on conventions. Attending GalaxyCon Raleigh next week. Excited. Yeah, and there's Trek people going, right? I saw Raleigh getting mentioned in a big way. So have fun. Just get all your generic questions. No, not generic. If you're curious about that, you know what? A lot of people are down about Vegas this year and saying, well, it's going to be watered down. The interactions with actors are good. And I would say, number one, don't forget that there are the creatives behind the scenes going to be there. There are folks from the, Prodigy and Lower Decks are going to be represented. There will be creatives behind the scenes. And the fan groups. There are so many nonprofits and charities and the podcast and the clubs and organizations and people doing good. Saturday night at 7, I'll remind everybody about this over the next couple of weeks. Saturday night from 8 to 11, I think, is our STEM star party with scientists and actors all promoting our fundraiser for raising money for women of color, for young folks, disadvantaged folks, to get people into sciences and technology, math, engineering, to diversify that field and just get more folks overall in. And that's going to be a sweet party that Amy Imhoff and I are co-hosting, something a little different. But Vegas is filled with those kind of events and opportunities. So it's a lot more than just the old creation rents 2 rooms on a weekend in Poughkeepsie, and one room is the dealers and one room is the actor on stage at 4:00. I mean, there's a lot more going on, which is what makes Trek Vegas special. Starting with the landing party. If you're there on Wednesday night for Con Eve, come by. But my point here is there's a lot to do, and it could even be a breath of fresh air. It could be, I'm thinking, a throwback to the old days when people weren't so sophisticated, fans weren't so savvy, and sometimes that was a little embarrassing and awkward, but sometimes it was kind of cute and pleasant, and actors got to talk more about their other interests, their other work, they can't talk about their other credits because that's a struck work too in the big picture, but unless they worked on a cartoon show. But it could be a breath of fresh air. I don't know how many more of these one-off exception years we can take, but that's the hand we're dealt this year. So it's going to be another fascinating year to be there. And again, for everybody who's not going to be there, you will be benefiting from seeing all the streaming, all the posting, and I'll be doing some live streams. We don't even know what the final schedules are going to be yet, but we're going to try to do more, if nothing else, of panels, at least some streaming walkarounds and funny moment and interesting things. So, make sure and, hey, hit the bell on YouTube. I'm going to try to do more and more YouTube there as much as Instagram, and probably less on Facebook. So, You want to ding the bell and subscribe and do all the stuff if you're on YouTube right now. And if you're not, get over to YouTube and subscribe, of course. But don't give up on Trek Vegas and think it's going to be a boring year with the actors. And I mean, it could be, in a word, fascinating this year. Certainly not as depressing as the year the pipe busted at Masquerade Bar and we had to do everything down at Islands. Let's see. We could send them healthy drinks instead of poison. Back to the drink. Yeah. Hey, analysis. Okay. Curious questions. Non-Americans still to be Star Trek actors are still members of the American Screen Actors Guild. Are they part of their home nations? It depends on where they work. If they're only working in their own home country, they would do that. But if they are lucky enough, if their fame and their talent has spread wide enough, if their managers are working hard enough for them, their publicists, if they get noticed and have a breakthrough in the States and then they start getting hired in America, yeah, it can be much to their detriment, to their benefit. It's much to their benefit to be, if they come over here, because the projects are bigger, the American stage, the American spotlight is bigger, the money is bigger. Even on an entry level, even on a workaday world, the money is better. So, for their personal sake, it's the same thing with directors, same thing with writers, same thing with crew people. The American economy and entertainment is a bigger picture. So yes, that's a reason why they might. But there's no reason to sit in the Netherlands or to sit in the UK. They wouldn't be able to anyway. It's as much about who you're working for as where you are. So, like, again, who is the union protecting you from when you're negotiating with? Who are you stronger with that union behind you than if you were a one-off gig worker doing your 1099? Yes. This is what I'm saying. I think I got around to it, Sean. Yes. Now, see, SAG doesn't mind you sending branded drinks to this picket line. That's fine. If you want to send beverages from Struckworks, I think that's okay. Hi, Scott. I see you here. Chuck, you have a vendor's table at STLV. What is it you do, Chuck? I'm sure I should know. Oh, TNG Fanatic. Oh, you can tell everybody if somebody hasn't already asked you. Somebody asked you. And this is true, Glenn. We didn't even talk about AI, artificial intelligence. Yeah. And if the writers were already geared up for it, the actors are terrified of it. Their body is their instrument. Their voice, their face, their body is their instrument. You take that away, especially the ridiculous thing that leaked out. The union did put out as the writers did also, they put out their demands and the union responses. You can see what the response was, and oftentimes you can see how they had crickets. They were stonewalled. They got no reply to things they wanted to talk about and raise. Here you go. Thank you, Chuck. You got Trek plates. Do you have Tom Paris? Action figures and toys. Chuck's rare Star Trek plates at Kyle Jacobs. Oh, asking. Like, Kyle, you work with, I didn't know. There you go. Absolutely. Okay. Looking for I'm curious if anybody, Chuck, yes, you have. And it just clicked in. I'm sorry, man, but it gave you a chance to promote and advertise. There you go. Yes, Duralta, absolutely. Now, I meant like ongoingly. I mean like for decades. But in this particular case, absolutely. Usually, the union is there 24/7 to protect against things like right now happening. Here's a case where it just couldn't be resolved at the table. Well, it could have been resolved. They just didn't want to resolve it. Yes, Sean. And of course, that's been talked about ever since Bar Association. Well, ever since the public became aware of Armin being such a union, not just a union guy, but a union official. He was on committees, he was a union volunteer and worker and in leadership. The same way David Goodman is over in the upper leadership of Writers Guild. It's the same way you see Bill Wolkoff, and I mentioned Carlos Cisco, uh, Eric Robbins too, who was also came up the ladder at Discovery and wrote and is in some of the videos we did. Same way they're in leadership. Same way, yeah, Michelle is now over on SAG. That's right. We did talk about Gordon last time. Yeah. Again, I mean, we didn't when he passed, but yes, yes, yes. Yeah, I keep not saying this, but Michelle Hurd is one of the vice presidents. There's more than one. She's not the vice president. And you know what? She's climbed the ladder. She's been there doing extras work, non-speaking. She did commercials. She's done all levels of everything and stage. And if you want to round it out, totally. And she's produced and probably directed stage anyway. She's got the full career, and it's great to bring all that experience in or out of truck world and convention world. Ensign Mount. Well, what studio produced Teen Wolf? I mean, technically, no. It's covering their older work. Oh, Phil, here you go. Because we were hearing the first weekend, we were hearing about a Vampire Diaries convention that Creation was running in Florida somewhere, Orlando, I don't know. And they were talking about them adjusting to it. It was almost sharing space with the Oppenheimer crew, going to the red carpet, hearing about the strike vote, and then leaving after an hour. So here you go. John Delancey, Frakes, and Todd Stashwick were at the event. Did I get all them in here? Yep. And they did a panel, but they couldn't talk about Star Trek. Attendees said it was one of the best panels they'd ever attended. Now, here's the thing. It'd be great to hear those guys tell stories. Do they have to always tell you what project they were working on or what character they were playing? No, they can tell stories about other actors on projects they worked on, and we just don't have to know what the project was. 2 years from now, somebody can come back and go, okay, when you told that great story, what was that on? And you, oh, okay. They might mention the other actor, and you can go triangulate IMDb and figure out what it was and when it was. Mm-hmm. Well, Cairo, this is what some of the actors themselves were saying. But a lot of people go to Vegas now, and this came up Sunday on the panel I did with Lori. A lot of people go to Vegas as the family reunion with fandom, and it's half that and half seeing what the latest news is, or it's checking out the vendor's room, or it's cosplaying, or it's it's meeting up with your cosplay friends, or whatever it is you do. And that will be different. But as who was it here? As Phil was saying, people, especially the longer an audience, the longer that our fan base knows these people, and it's easiest to know them the best because they're the faces we think we, there's that old thing about fans think they know an actor, but the real person is nothing like the character they play. And you wind up with, like, Misery. You wind up with his novel, Stephen. All I can say is Steven Seagal. All you can do is remember that the actor is not the character. And sometimes when you've been inviting those people into your living room for 5 years, 10, 20, 30, 40 years, 50 years, you're just as tickled to meet the real person as you are the character. I think it's especially disappointing for first-time folks, which is why I really want to go all out, and I hope everybody goes all out to tell people, not like, oh, I mean, you have to come back next year and see a real con. I mean, I kind of did a little bit with Bally's. I wanted to say this is going to be awesome, but you should come back to the real when it's the real STLV. But don't ever not enjoy anything happening here. I'm not trying to take away your fun at all. And that's kind of what I would say to people who show up this year who are worried about not having real actors to talk to about their. It's going to be great for meeting the actors, whether that's your old friends that you know, and you can get yet another story out of your TNG DS9 Enterprise Voyager person, or it's the newer shows that you haven't had time to meet them yet. I mean, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. We have so many Star Treks and so many casts and actors and guest stars. And then we can talk about the animateds, and we might finally shine an even bigger light on the writers, directors, designers, crafts. And yeah, Dave Blass and Liz Koslowski are going to be there. Can't wait to do some. They've got some stuff, and we're talking about things we're going to do. We're just going to get more stage time for all of them. I was so thrilled last year to finally get Andrea Kindred Richardson on stage where people could see her, and now the world, fell in love. And yes, Scott, we'll see. We'll see. No one's going to turn the ship around and go home, though. It didn't have to be shut down. That's kind of number one. That would have been that would have been a disaster for fans, for the actors, even for creation. Yep. Okay. Basically, Christoph, yeah. Theater, books, music, family, LGBTIQ, politics, climate. Well, see, Glenn, this is what I thought too. I thought in my mind's eye there was a difference between the legacy shows that aren't really affected by any of the terms of the current talk and that. But they see it not so much about the dollar amounts. This is why I finally realized. It's not about the dollars, big or small, old or new. It's just about the general promotion and the brand and the umbrella of Star Trek. Yeah. Hi, Barbara. Well, I've known Natalia. I was Natalia's what? Not guardian angel. I was her angel one year because she fell in the cracks back when they first had licensed photos, but we didn't have frame grabs. And actors got licensed photos from the archives at Paramount. And there were some days when the guest stars didn't have a set photographer the day they happened to, nothing to them. It's only 20 years later they go, oh, well, there's no photography of you. What do you mean there's no photography? And it was too expensive and difficult to do frame grabbing then. And in that time frame, I helped her out. I found her some, but nobody wanted to go to the trouble or the expense to have a master for one actor when you were paying like $200 for a frame grab master back in the day, because it had to be done in the Bay at the visual effects house, and you had to pay somebody on the visual effects team to do it, and it was just a huge. I had to pay the first editions of Star Trek of the Companion, the Blue Book. There were some episodes that had crappy photography. Home Soil, something happened. Either they didn't send a photographer or his film blew up or whatever. But there is no set photography from Home Soil. Little piece of trivia there, guys. But now, of course, it's all moot. People can do that. And apparently the licensed photo system, there are no legal lines, no branding on your photos anymore. That has to be there unless you want it. And you create your own, of course. What are you saying here, Cairo? Not to echo Bob Iger. Thank you. Bob Iger, head of Disney and ABC. The timing of this is unfortunate, especially right after the pandemic. Well, that's true. Having the supply chain snafu right after the pandemic was not great. He can do something against it, and they knew when the contracts run out. In our case, we really feel the problems and have not really anything we ourselves can do about it other than voicing support. Yeah. And a lot of the fan base is a lot of the fan base is wanting to do all they can to support. Hey, Nadim. It's been a while since you've been with us on Tuesday, huh? No, because it's only Trek and not Star Trek. Yes, I had my attorney check into this. No, 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 no. Although this whole thing made me realize that I'm still SAG eligible. If you were in a production that met all the need a checklist and guidelines for your budgeting and how you operated, even if it's like small, what's that word? Startup media, small media. I was in a small media project 12 years ago. One guest star type role. Divine White's Introduction to Hollywood. Look it up. I think it's still available to watch. It's brilliant. My friend Allison produced it and starred in it. It's really funny. It's a British actors in Hollywood. Talk about and fish out of water. At least one person is. Everybody else is just a little confused and perplexed. So no, I'm not becoming Dr. SFISM. Sphism. I'm just going to stay Dr. Trek if that's okay. I think I'm perfectly within my legal rights to do so. What does that mean for you, fam work? Yes. Yes. Are you in SAG? Then do whatever you want. Well, I mean, don't go cause a car wreck or run people over or something. Don't do that. Analysis. Again, are you in SAG? Then I think you're clear. Absolutely. Absolutely. Good deal. I love Natalia to pieces. This is true. Yes, Sean. The problem with hurting cons is it hurts so many people not related to the studios. Absolutely. Same reason that the strikes themselves hurt everybody else who works in the industry. And that's why there are the support funds to help people in a really bad way. Both the union members, but also everybody else who works in the productions that can't film right now. Starting with the directors. Oh, okay. Really? Wow. Okay. We'll see what power. See, one actor does that. That's cool. I hope you get to stay more than one day when you do come. Um, yeah, Christoph, you beat me to it in real time, but yes, this is what I just said. Well, here's the thing. It's not just that do you count as an influencer? Are you paying SAG dues as an influencer in their influencer membership category? If you're not, then thank goodness you're clear. And there you go. If you're not being paid by a studio under a guild related contract, then you're not subject to their rules, which means, all this money the League of Paramount Shills, the LPGs. Yes, yes. SAG isn't going to come after you. Okay, because number one, you're supporting. I mean, why would they want you to? Well, why would they come after you if you were supporting anything in a time when we're still trying to get people back in theaters and we're still trying to get people? Yes, yes. Well, you said it from your lips to the great bird's ears, Chuck. Stay indoors. Just stay inside. Thank you. I knew that was wrong, and I always do that. They were both the same and at the bubble at the same time. Thank you. The nuts was Jericho. All they had the protest against cancellation. The last line of the last show scene when the character said nuts, like General McAuliffe at the Battle of Bastogne, at Bastogne in the Battle of the Bulge. Germans wanted him to surrender, and he said nuts, and that was kind of a takeoff on that. This fan said used it as a protest. The fans of Jericho. Okay. The thing is that while we aren't union members and they can't tell us what to do, we also don't want to make it feel like we crossed their picket. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. No, and that's what I'm saying. This is like the confusion of all the well-intentioned people There's like a little sliver of 1% trolls over here trying to stir shit up and enjoy. I love the chaos. But it's not really that way. It's really a traffic jam of well-intended people just getting their stuff sorted out. And there can be a lot of unintended hurt and consequences in all kinds of ripple effects by well-intentioned people. And that's the one thing nobody wanted to, if it's counterintuitive to what the union is, what SAG is trying to accomplish with how they're positioning all these things, if that's just, they get just the opposite reaction, then that's not helpful, Okay, it's been so long. Analysis. Worked a job once. There was a mix of non-union and union workers, and union workers are janitors, and all the maintenance people are union. Okay. Okay. Hey, Melanie, wish you could have been there. Well, it hasn't happened yet, but plenty of roles they can all talk about besides Star Trek. Well, see, that's the thing. If the soaps were for NBC or ABC, you know what I'm saying? I think stage work would be, I think they can talk about their theatrical careers and stage work. There you go. Hey, Becca. Rebecca, another one of our portales is waving in. Would this be something, Christoph? How many people want to be SAG or Writers Guild and feel obliged to follow the rules in your own home? Okay. I'm trying to remember, Duralta, if they had a source for that guy, or if it was just like it was one source said one of the producers on the negotiating team said this. And yeah, see, Ron Perlman's answer video has really blew that up. But that was a big story already. Ron Perlman's video that went hugely viral was a day or two later, which was hysterical because it was already, people were like, oh my God, like that was tone deaf. But that's the good thing. They say these things. And Bob Iger's saying, well, it's just that they're on strike is just very disappointing. It's like, no, what's disappointing is you guys are just hogging the pie. What is this? Hey, Chris Marshall. Yeah, Chris, I saw you on Sunday's chat. And I'm sorry we didn't dip into the chat more often. There was so much to talk about. Okay, Chris. Now, I'm not a lawyer, Chris. Oh, let me put your question up. I am not a lawyer, but I would say Brent Spiner specifically wrote that book called Fan Fiction. It's set in the 90s while he's filming TNG, but it is not. It's not biographical, and it's not even. It's all fictional. It's all exaggerated. It's like Mike McMahon's fictional. What was it called? Warped, the fictional 8th season of Next Generation, or the secret 8th season of Next Generation. It's all parody. It's all exaggerated. So that's kind of the tone of his book. Not as out there as, well, no, actually, it's not. It's probably about the same. Anyway, I don't think it would be. Now, he's talking about, he's not promoting the show. I don't know. What you do is, here's what you do. You go up and say, like, what was the question? Was it about something organic to Brent in his narrative, or was it something about, when you mentioned this thing when you were shooting data lore, was that real life, or did you totally make that up? Okay, that's a simple thing. If that's the extent of your envelope pushing here that you're worried about, because the book itself was a parody and it's his own book, then you can say, you go, Mr. Spiner, I really enjoyed your book, Fan Fiction. I just want to ask, you don't have to come up and preface it. Now, if the thing you ask forces him to say, no, on this show, this happened, but in my exaggerated, crazy satire, I had this happen. What he can say is, and you know what? All the actors are getting briefed this way. The agents and the moderators and the actors themselves are all madly right now kind of getting this down, because they don't want to be the one that gets accused of going against their union. They don't want to either. They want to have it both ways, and there should be a way. It shouldn't be a false choice. What you do is you say, I really enjoyed your book fan fiction. I read this thing in it. Was that really different than the real world version? And then he can say, without even saying Star Trek, and then he can say, oh yes, that's, except in real life, the guy with the green shirt, forget that. The guy in the red pants didn't say that. He said this. I mean, if the actors can come up with a way to generalize it without doing, and if this sounds like it's insane hoop jumping, maybe it is, but it's people all wrangling with trying to do the spirit, if the letter of the law, if not the spirit of the regulations. There's no law here, but yeah. So I hope you can. Please say hi, Chris. We'll have plenty of time to do it. Come by the table or landing party if you're there Wednesday night, or anything all weekend long. I'm just glad that I always love to see when people can make their first time, and always want to make sure everybody has a good time. Not it's like it's on my shoulders, but I want to be one of the 5,000 who's helping you have a good time. Here you go. The fact that soaps are not struck surprised me. Speaking of soaps, there are at least 2 different Star Trek merchant soaps as in Federation labeled pieces of soap. Okay, then. The writers aren't SAG writers. The writers aren't Writers Guild writers on soaps. I thought the soaps had to shut down because of the writer's strike. See, there you go, Chris. That's what I said on Sunday. You've got preset friends all queued up to say hi to. I know you said you came out of a family and local situation where you were the only fan and kind of got ridiculed, looked down at. So I lived through the 80s. I know what that was like, and the 90s. So we're not in that world anymore. And especially you will be surrounded by, as B. Joe's old book was, you'll be surrounded by, 10,000 of your favorite friends. And then, Kyle, you can't regulate what comes out of the fans' mouths. A fan might ask it, and then the moderator goes, nope, I'm sorry, sit down. But once it's out in the air, they may react to it. And if people are sympathetically saying, okay, now, I don't know if I'm putting this right, but I want to be able to ask you, and there'll probably be, I'm sure, tons of understanding. So if you plead, the weekend ignorance of what to do it the best way, the way all other fans will be doing, I'm sure you'll be fine. But yes, Kyle, good point here. Hey, Rebecca, I was just trying to answer the question intelligently. What would the purpose of a union for cosplayers be? Most people cosplay for fun and don't get paid for it. I would think if you're getting paid for cosplay, that would fall under modeling. Except models, they wear other people's clothes. It's like cosplayers are models who make their own clothes. Does that make sense? Models, fashion models, the whole point is to wear somebody else's stuff. And in that way, I might get shot by the modeling world, but cosplayers have a performance aspect where they are proud to. Although when I first heard the term cosplay, I thought the point was that you were in costuming and you were playing a character, and it was as much about the role play as it was wearing the costume. But cosplay is just the $5 word for what we always said was going in costume. But supposedly you make your own, although not all cosplayers do make their own. But yeah, the point was if they're getting paid for it, and apparently there's a burgeoning level that are getting paid. If they're getting paid for appearances as a gig thing, not ongoingly full-time. I'm a full-time cosplayer, paid professional cosplayer. Okay. Thank you, Rebecca. There is a union for models. It's known as the Guild. And Felicia Day has nothing to do with it. Well, maybe they'd be a subunit, a sub-local of the Guild, the Modelers Union. Mostly in the Comic-Con world and anime world. Independent artists. See, that's what I'm saying. There was a time when all actors, and before SAG, there was Actors Equity, the Stage Actors Union. Okay. Cairo. The CEO wages nothing. That's true. That's the boards. That's the board of directors of them. Yes, that's true. But what do you do? What is the grassroots level? Oh, and you got cut off. That should change. But any employment negotiation will not change that. Not sure what can. Well, it can't hurt. And nothing else. The awareness. Never underestimate the awareness that comes out of a strike for issues, which is what I was saying also. Oh, it's 3:10. Okay, we've been at it for coming up on 2 hours, gang. Yes, Rebecca, you guys had asked these questions way back and I answered them, but you've already answered them here. Yeah, but this is making their own costumes is what sets them apart from like fashion models who are wearing other people's. Um, yeah, beyond the joke. Um, oh, Der Alta, not a Trek related question. I'm sorry, that's a struck work, and I'm not allowed. No, I'm kidding. Thing about Charlie X, and I can't help but think if Kirk would have acted differently, Charlie would not have run amok. Okay, that episode at times feels a little 1966 in some ways. The basic core of the heart of it is the same. Some of the actions may not be. I know, Christoph. I know. My homework history lesson. I'm sorry. I was trying to cover everything before I got to questions. Oh, you found the woman he based the book on, and you want to find out if I'm right. Well, are you talking about there's a name for the woman and it's the same name? Because if he's trying to protect her identity and doesn't want to reveal it, you can always say, I think I found the woman you based the book on. Are her initials JZ? And if he says or I mean, if he'll just do that and it's only the two of you communicating, maybe he would. But there's a way to ask that without getting into the struck work. Struck work. Just an interesting thing. There you go, Justin. Having been a costumer for 37 years. Now, when I hear costumer, I'm thinking someone who works at a theater or works at a studio as a costumer professionally. Are you talking about being a fan costume wearer, making your own costumes? I mean, I'm with you. I hear you. Thinking they need to get paid. Well, if someone's going to pay them, fine. There are people that get paid for things now that used to be. I mean, there's all kinds of things that people did on their own. And now it's become enough of a thing. And we've got media falling out of everybody's pockets 24/7. And if there's money floating around out there, I don't begrudge anybody getting paid for something. But I hear where you're coming from. I hear where you're coming from. Well, Melanie, this is the point. The idea to me that sports gamers or gamers get paid to be exports teams and colleges have exports teams. The idea that people are getting paid to, but then when you say the idea that people get paid to play games is amazing. Once upon a time, baseball and football and basketball were all just games like hopscotch and jumping jacks. But at some point, somebody paid them to play. And at some point, colleges decided that was the thing to have scholarships for and could represent the university and yada yada. So yeah, I'm sitting here. I'm just a I'm just an eraist, I guess, if I forget that the 1800s people paid people to play baseball and football, and that started a whole thing. Paid people just to play games. I can't believe they're paying those people to play football. Um, gosh, Christoph, can I vote for you to be president of the world? makes makes sense to me. But that's why the middle classes of the world have been carved out. Okay. Once again, Christoph, totally in agreement. This is where the economies of the world get skewed, screwed and skewed. Now, what are you saying here? Hey, Moo. Thank goodness that messaging is no longer reliant on studio-owned media and publications. Social media definitely has its myriad issues, but there are pluses. Yeah, I would gonna say when we edited the licensed magazine communicator for the fan club, we had restrictions we were under, but we pushed the envelope a lot. And sometimes it was just old. It wasn't so much about, I don't know, it was just old world thinking. It's like, well, we are promoting the shows, and this is what fans want to know about. And anyway, it was just interesting those times. But we found ways to push the envelope. You meant small m messaging, not capital. When you said messaging, I thought the app. It's like, what? Was the app of messages ever owned by someone? Mm-hmm. I'm not following you, Cairo, but then I missed your setup here, I think. Professional costumers would be under IATSE, and yes, absolutely. Local, whatever it is, are the costumers wardrobe. Well, Chris, you could tell the whole class. Um, well, sure, it's easy for you to say, Daralta. You're in Europe. You had 500 years head start on wackiness. Um, well, this is heartening to know. Analysis. I'm glad to hear it. I think they're a definite tiny sliver minority, but I'm glad to hear it. And the needle. Okay. Cairo, I'm trying to follow you here, but I see what you're saying, but I'm missing the setup for it. So uh, you're saying it's like anything else. When power swings too much to one way or the other, that's not a good thing. Too much of anything, Lieutenant, even love, is not a good thing. Just to make sure, can you ask Brent Spiner about his book? Okay, Chris, I'm no lawyer, and the chair may rule differently in the moment. But from where I'm sitting right now, and somebody else may be answering you, I would say, Mr. Spiner or Brent, I have your book Fan Fiction. I know it's, I mean, you don't have to mention anything about Star Trek, and just say, I'm curious. I think I've figured out who the real world woman is that you patterned your character after. Can you say, are her initials AB? And maybe he says, oh, I can't talk about that. Then he doesn't talk about it. Or maybe he says, actually, yes. Come by my table and let's talk about it later. Maybe he does that. Maybe he says, nope, it's not that. I mean, and maybe it was, and he's not going to tell you in public. I mean, there's all kinds of reactions, but I don't think anyone's going to say, I'm sorry, that's a book about a parody view of Star Trek production, and we can't have you answer it. I mean, that's not going to happen. Does that help at all? I think there's plenty of, that's an easy one to me. And again, you can always go by his table and, see if he would talk to you about it. The fact that you bought and read fan fiction, I would think he would be pleased by. Especially Brent's so down on himself about that. Like, all 42 of my friends bought the book. Okay. Yeah. Everybody's offering you the same information there. Yeah. Scott. Oh, that thing of mine about that thing? Yeah, but it's a parody, see? It's a parody. And again, Paramount won't see a dime of that book and never has and won't ever, but no, Chris, I hear you. I hear the confusion. It's again, I thought I had it figured out at the beginning, and I was surprised that all the legacy shows fell under their radar for this. Mm-mm-mm. But yeah, that book and Cairo's, it's all fictional. It's doing a exaggeration version of himself. So yeah. Oh boy. Okay, I missed the setup for this. Wow. Oh, it's all goes back to Brent's book. Okay. I'm trying to press ahead, gang. Now, what, Cairo? Does YouTube just call us Restream bot, or does it at least add our real nicks from, say, Twitch? I would think it would read like this, like you're seeing here. Okay. Chris, is this the woman he talks about in Trekkies, the documentary? Is this the woman that's in Trekkies? Now you've got me intrigued. Mm-mm-mm. Okay. Move along, move along, move along, move along, move along. Absolutely. Let's not forget, say hashtag save Star Trek Prodigy. When they're starving for, we can only wish, we can only hope. But then they'll have to do that tax refund, however many $1 million they. Remember when BC meant before Christ, now it means before COVID. Yeah, or BP does not mean British Petroleum; it means before pandemic. Oh, Duralta, you've got a question. Can one write a Star Trek story that is not fan fiction using or reintroducing characters that are in public domain? There are no Star Trek characters that are in public domain. Everything from Pike and Kirk and Spock onward is trademarked. I'm not sure what you mean there. Mm-hmm. Okay. Oh, excuse me, gang. It's warm here. I don't know, Cairo. This is kind of a, I don't know. The money may not be there to do that. We'll see. Really? Wow, Justin. The new Fox Alien series is going to continue with non SAG actors. Oh, well, yeah, let's see how that turns out on about 17 levels. What's the quality? And I'm not knocking anybody's acting. I'm just saying what's the quality, but also what's the well-oiled machine behind that? And what about all the IATSE? What about all the other union crews, the writers and the crews and the teamsters and the directors when they're working with scab actors? I Good or not? I don't know. Is that what that did? Is that what that did? Oops. Okay, maybe we edited it out. I so did not mean to do that. I feel really bad. I think it was the Boston police. I'm pretty sure it was. But I know it was a huge public sector strike in Boston, and he was the governor of Massachusetts at the time. And that's what put silly little Calvin Coolidge on the, I think. Maybe I'm mixing my history. Maybe I'm spreading disinformation today. Um, Anne Marie, I'm so into the strike history weeks, especially things like SAG union presidents during strikes becoming U.S. president. Really will be interesting if any actors or writers cross into politics after excelling at strike organization and leadership. Well, was Reagan the SAG president in 1960? I think he was. That was crazy. And then, of course, goes into politics and betrays all the principles that he stood up for as a union president. That's when that's when it could have been Hollywood elites, at least in the leadership. Oh well, it was a different Hollywood then. Um, yeah. Who did I talk with about the effects of the strike historically? With music videos not struck, maybe we finally get a Trek musical. You know, there was a Trek musical in London in the 90s, I think. I have to dig out the stuff on that sometime. Let's see. Can we all appreciate how great the casting Sirach was? He looked so much like his screen dad. Yeah, and for all the other reasons too. But sure. This is yeah. They very definitely tied him to a real world strike. Yeah, in the Pittsburgh Appalachians, in the coal country. And yes, absolutely, Melanie. I need to do something. It's insane right now with the cons happening and other things happening. But I want to do something now that the actors are there and this is dragging on and the new has worn off. And apparently the bosses are counting on them collapsing by October. Things like water and food and support crew as a big deal. Yeah, yeah. Hello again, Don Don. We've had just a jolly talk here talking about the strikes and everything. I started to see I haven't seen the Prodigy all the way through, but you're right, Sean. They could have been doing that. They should all drink Slogo Cola, the slimiest cola in the galaxy. Opinion question. Thank you, Jr. Has Hollywood sort of exploited international actors? A lot of them are cast in superhero films. Would they be cheaper to cast? You mean, have they been exploited and underpaid in the past? I'm not sure I'm following you. Not sure. Excuse me, gang. You all are scintillating. That's me in a warm room. Wish there was a Nick Locarno plate. Oh, that would be. We need to tell. We need to tell Frage this. Yes, indeed. You know what I'm gonna do right now? I'm going to. Can I do this? I think I can. Yeah. Okay, Sean. I'm gonna do something funny with that, but real. Okay. Well, this is true, Cairo. AI is not a threat. It's just sitting there. It's how humans are going to use it. And that's, yes, that's a thing. I hope it's not a thing on its own. The AI sucks at eyes. It makes them look extremely well. The AI of 2024 or 2023. Do I think we will ever see binars again in Star Trek? Didn't we have them? Wasn't there mention? Oh my God, in Picard or Strange New Worlds just recently, or maybe on Lower Decks, or maybe on Prodigy. I was thinking there was another update about binars. Oh, hi, Trek reviewer. I think you've been with us before. If not, welcome over. But I thought there was a mention just recently, maybe something really obscure, like something in the Zabalian collector's ship or something on Lower Decks. I don't know. Oh, that's what they're going to do. I've been kidding all week that they just have the same 5-minute trailer play over and over again. But they're going to show. That makes sense. Those Old Scientists is actually the name of the episode. That's going to be the Hall H program. Well, they have 45 minutes. I wonder if they'll cut it down a little bit. There you go. Okay. The screeners are about used up. They need to send out the new screeners. You know what? I had no clue Michelle Hurd was part. I didn't watch all the SVUs over the years, and I was visiting someone that had it on, and I was like, "Oh my God, that's Michelle Hurd." And they said, "Well, yeah, she's on here for years." I had no idea. Procedurals aren't my big thing, but that's how I realized a lot of people know Michelle Hurd is from SVU. Well, that's a thing, Scott. That's a thing. I mean, it's how Patrick got through the pandemic, reading a sonnet every day on Instagram live, on Instagram. I mean, there is that. Oh no. Oh no, Sarge. Protect your circuits. Lightning, no surge protection processor. Protector. Um Thank you. Stephen King, that guy. Yes. Thank you. Now there's the spirit, Cairo. We'll be at STLV for sure and check out the vendors room, but for actors, even being there is basic part of the Star Trek, and that's the conflict. That's it. Well, I mean, that's what I'm saying. The more years people have in, the more people enjoy the actor for the actor's sake. Some people, I'm not saying blanket. Some people will always say, "Oh, I love Nana. I love Kira." You know. Oh, Melanie, that's just being simplistic. This is exactly what I'm thinking, Nathaniel. But if people want to know what the model is for talking at cons and not mentioning Star Trek, it's Shatner's been doing it for 20 years, 30 years. Geralt. You know, there are some people that might be a little peed off at Marina. I'm not, but yeah, Marina is very cool. Hey, Diana. Yeah, you would be part of the convention family reunion crowd. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me a bit. Um, well, this is this is true, Cairo. This is what we'll see. That's what I was saying last year before we knew all this was going to happen. Come to the Rio and see a real STLV. We'll see what happens. I don't know where they're going to move to, but we will see. There was a time before the pandemic, there were all kinds of rumors and speculation whether they were going to tear the Rio, whether the Rio owners would tear it down and sell it for land for a new Vegas stadium, or they would tear it down, period, and for anything. There was a lot of talk well before the pandemic that all those years might be the last year to be there. Um, yes, Diana King, Stephen King, just like Bond, James Bond. Yes. Well, this is a thing, JR, and I have to tell you, I'm not sure off the top. And of course, there's not a template. Patrick Stewart and Brent Spiner over the years got to negotiate for different terms than, I don't know, down the line. So we'll see. Than Marina did, I'm sure. Well, I can count on you, Cairo. I will see you at all of mine then. Yeah. Oh, Christoph, what are you saying? The Trek umbrella. What about non-struck work that reuses or references characters from struck work? Do you have like a parody, a satire, the documentaries? I don't. You have to say this is what's coming through. That's their hour. That's their 45-minute window. Maybe they're giving them a little more time. That's what they're filling up. There's no promo. There's no anything. It's just. I mean, unless they have a minute or two and they say the Lower Decks premiere date. I don't know. That's what normally would have happened, but that's interesting. And hi, Christian, and you are just fine. What? If I'm on hello, Paul. If I'm on Facebook, who's in the cornfield protecting the corn from the crows? Let me see. Let me look at your cute little avatar there, and I'm gonna say you don't usually stop by this way, huh? Okay. I should be Dr. Strike. Oh, I don't know. I don't know. You all, I think the heat's getting to you too. Um, Dr. Dr. Sphism. I don't know. I don't believe in sphism. Sphism. Yes, ism. I'm not a sphisist. And I don't believe in ism. Trekland, Dr. Sphism. Yeah, there you go. And Paramount Plus just announced they're showing a rerun of the crossover. Hope the crowd starts chanting at them. There may be no human in existence. Somebody may come out to introduce it, but if they really still only have the 45-minute window, I'm sure that episode is not. I'm sure it's closer to 60. You asked me this again. We might. I could have sworn there was a Binar by itself and it was lost or something. I want to say Lower Decks, but I could be wrong. How does it affect self-publishers of fan fiction as well as authors of totally original fiction of any genre? Well, it doesn't affect fan fiction because they're not, again, Are any of these people in the SAG or Writers Guild? No. So, and if it's fan fiction, are they abiding by the fan? Are they making money on it and ripping it up? No. So, totals original fiction of any genre. Well, it doesn't affect the original authors at all. Yeah, it's you're over fearing it, Melanie. Let's see here. There you go. Right. And the bottom line is, are you a member or not? Are you a member of the guild involved? Then if you're not, then it doesn't apply to you. The most that would happen is if the union says, we'd like to ask our audience or our fans or the public to fill in the blank. And then there you go. Did I miss this? I'm sorry. Apologies if I did analysis. You were telling me about the mixture thing. I wasn't allowed to fix shit. Oh, okay. Okay. JR. I think SAG knows who the real enemy is. Okay. I don't think they have the money or the energy to send SAG police to anywhere to make sure people don't say the wrong thing and get somebody in trouble. I don't know. Just kind of my gut feeling there. Oh, Spiner again talks about one of the episodes in his book. Okay. Whether or not the author of a book is or isn't the same lady in the book fan fiction it was based on a stalker. I don't know. I think you're all worked up about this, Chris. I'm starting to feel like it's a Monty Python sketch called Phone In, where there was a radio talk show and it was supposed to be about farming, and everybody called in different questions that had nothing to do with farming. And then finally somebody had a question about farming and they said, I'm sorry, we're only taking questions about farming. And then there was a woman who called in, an old lady, and her husband didn't call in because he died, but he left a question in his will to be asked on the show. Anyway, I love that sketch. It's so fun. And it's only on the three-sided album, Monty Python, Matching Tying Handkerchief. But he did leave a question in the will. Oh dear. Oh, okay. Of course, Willie. Of course. Some cosplayers are professional or are professional models. Yes, exactly. And we've discovered that they have their own union, and I would think they'd just be union there. Aside, there's specifics that are specific due to cosplay. All I'm saying is, if there's a need, then go do one, and you're probably better off organizing under the umbrella of somebody else. It sounds like there's another umbrella to do. Yeah. Okay, Jim. I'll probably see you and a few other people too. Oh, awesome. You always wanted to cosplay as John Steed from the Avengers. The bowler hat, but the rest, expensive. Yes. I mean, the real adventures, not those comic book people running around in funny pajama uniforms that don't match anyone else. Mm. Well, two parts here, Chris. Good for standing up for those who got picked on. Good for you. Okay. Oh my gosh, it's been 2.5 hours. Good Lord. Are we going to overlap somebody else's stream today? Hello, Rose. Good you could join us from across the pond. Yeah. Okay. This is what I'm saying. You can have him sign it and ask your question in private. Absolutely. Oh, Christian, so sorry to hear that. But thank you for the good wishes. You'll hear, at least these days, 20 years ago, you didn't have instant sharing of everything. Uh, Pressing ahead. What is Klingon for the end of the chat? That would be a good thing, folks. It's been 2.5 hours now. But I know it's kind of a crazy time. And I think I included way too much in the topic today, but there we go. Move along home. Thank you, Cairo. Oh. That's funny, Cairo. Citrus is so awesome. Tell Sirach because autocorrect always makes his name Citrus. Yeah, there you go. Yes, there's an off Broadway Trek musical right now, which isn't licensed, I believe, called Con the Musical. Uh huh. Will I be joining the Threads app? I think so. I jumped over and joined Mastodon, and I joined Post, and I thought I had the Blue Sky waitlist, and apparently I don't. I do now, and there's just so many of these. It's kind of like really. I'm not going to abandon Twitter because Twitter was my strongest. I had more people on Twitter than any other platform. Damn it. Oh, really? Drop Mastodon? It's pointless, or it's getting toxic, or what are you saying? It's not. I haven't put any effort into it. Believe me. Mm-mm-mm. Bad binars. See, was it a lower decks? I was thinking it was. Thank you. Okay, so not visible, just a mention. Thank you. I knew I didn't. I knew I didn't dream that. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I've only watched things once or twice. It's not like I've watched 12 times, like through screamingly slow, scrapingly slow. I was yorging 30 years ago before yorging was a verb, and we didn't have social media to tell the world about it. Yeah, little Larry going through on a forehead VCR frame at a time, valiantly trying to read every okutogram before anybody knew what those were. Yeah, yeah, yeah. See, it would have survived. I do. I don't remember it, but I know all about it. I remember knowing about it. Oh, Sean, what's that famous commander said one day? Be careful what you wish for, Lieutenant. You may get it. Oh. Fox News, Fox Network has been taken off DirecTV. Huh. Okay. Thank you. Umbrella and non-struck work referencing struck work. Oh, documentaries, animation, lower decks. Gotcha, gotcha. Yeah, I think if it's adjacent like that, it's not. What are you going to do? Take every third or every animation? It's gonna. Every episode of Lower Decks is gonna have to go away. Every episode of Prodigy has Janeway in it. So what? That's gonna. I don't think so. Disney has something written in the contracts now with live action film actors. It's why there isn't any enchanted characters in the parks. I remember reading that 10 years ago in a forum. Okay. Troy could be a Disney princess at last. Jasmine Bell, Deanna. Yeah. Yeah. Hey, look who's here, Rico. You've been on the strike lines a bunch, and let me assure you, we are all well taken care of in terms of water, sunscreen, snacks. In the early days, I know, Rico, I just talking about as the days wear on. Anyone who wants to help and donate more water or whatever are more than welcome to, and it's always appreciated. Thank you for bringing that front lines. Here's the rest of what you said. Some A-list celebrities have donated to and provided food trucks, ice cream trucks. Even this week at both Warner Brothers and Disney, strike hours were reduced a bit to compensate for how hot it's been. Big shout out to both the WGA and SAG for taking care of its peeps. I saw that Henry Alonzo Myers and Akiva Goldsman sent an ice cream shaved ice truck, and Bill Wolkoff was thanking them with a photo uh, from his own show to his own show. It was for everybody, not just strange new writers. You said the strike is of course necessary, and no one wants to be where we are, but we are holding it down and standing our ground. The soul of Hollywood as we know it is literally at stake. Thank you to all who have taken the time to understand what's going on and have shown support throughout. Believe me, Rico Anderson says, when I tell you we all see it and appreciate it. And yeah, in the social media age, I it was a natural for the unions to get it and do better at messaging beyond their ranks to the general public. The general public doesn't have a vote, but then they do, you know. But if '08 was what it was, then this is times 1,000. And the producers still come off as greedy, horrible, and clueless and tone deaf. Cairo. You have 3 to 4. If they need to fill panel time, you have 3 to 4 Star Trek film site presentations on your computer that you can show on short notice. Well, so do I. But that's awesome. That's awesome. And I do appreciate every time you get a chance in Europe to do that, Austria, in Vienna or wherever, FedCon, wherever. I believe that. This is true. Dr. Horrible's sing along blog came out in the 2008 strike. Who knows what will come out as this thing drags on? Yes. Mm-mm-mm. And there you go, Dave. Rico, thank you. There we go. I've been thinking, I had Bill Wolkoff the first week of the writer's strike. We need to get somebody. Maybe I can get Michelle. Maybe I'll get somebody, especially from Trek World, that's out. Oh, yes. Sorry, Chris. I am. It's all good. It's all good. Well, there you go, Sean. Disney has started using 501st people in their productions. Yeah, they're cheaper. We sure have. And you know what? I'm not getting golden time for this. Not even time and a half. Okay. Was it informative? I hope so. I've just been surprised at the questions that I keep seeing people, again, people who are very supportive and just confused and frustrated. Oh, it has? Has it totally shut down? Well, it was a little clunky. This is true. This is true. Which may have been exactly why it died or is dying. Oh, Rebecca, I'm so sorry to hear about that. Day 2 of COVID, 3 boosters, so it goes to show it doesn't know how to protect. Yeah, it makes it easy on you when you do get it, but still. That's Jorging, aka Hildebranding. Yes, yeah. Yeah, everything that Jorg does now on Twitter is what I did in the night. You know that, right? Okay. Didn't get paid for it aside from building up my own database that I could then make pennies when I would do projects for licensing. Yeah, it would have been a lot of fun to have had Twitter in the 90s. As you're madly Polaroiding or getting people in post to make you the special little printouts from their post-production effects, because no one knows you can't frame grab yet unless you're actually frame grabbing off of film or getting physical clips like you would get from Roddenberry. Absolutely, Becca. Get better. There you go, Rico. The Rico fan club is saying, "Stay safe." Let's see. Rico's Roughnecks. He might just go for that. There you go. There you go. A lot of love for Rico in that first-hand report, and from me too, because we didn't plan that. I've been trying to come up with something to have on a Tuesday like that. Um, well, here you go. And Thread wants to be compatible with Mastodon. Whatever. Whatever. Gang, I think we are finally at the end of the chat. And I just want to say once again, for starters, thanks to all the Patreon folk, the TTLers, and the live wires. Yay! Doing that. And if you want to join them, very simply, very cheaply, $5, $10. There's a shout out every week. The $10 folks, the live wires, get access to the first couple years, 2 or 3 years of our behind the scenes creatives interviews from Portal 47. There's the URL, patreon.com/Trekland Live. What I really want to remind everybody about is a Trekland Trek, especially when it's right side up. There we go. It is a hot summer, but it is a little cooler in LA than it is some parts of the country. But no matter if you're taking a vacation, you're headed to LA, or if you're coming here for business, come on. And that's just a few of them. There's now with Picard, there's over 50 places around LA that have been a Star Trek location shot. And I'm stretching that from 2 hours north to south. And I'm not including San Francisco even. So that's going to be on the big tour. That's the Geek Nation tour. You should go over to geeknationtour.com and check out the West Coast Away mission, which is going to be July 2024. We had to bump it back a year. That's going to have a lot more celebrities than before involved. It's going to be 11 days. It's a bigger thing than we've ever done before. We're doing both cities, LA and San Francisco, in the same trip. Whew. But if you're looking for something just a little smaller, get your toe wet. That's what the treklandtreks.com are all about. Otherwise, gang, again, well, you know, the Trek Files, the great, sorry to say, the lovely and talented Sarah Lofton is my guest this week. I can't wait for you to hear that. It's up already, of course, every Tuesday. The Tuesday Twofers, Trek Files, and Trekland Live here on Tuesday. Check that out. That's over at facebook.com/The Trek Files, or wherever fine podcasts are caught. We just have the documents, and our community is on Facebook. Love to hear your thoughts on that one. We talk about strike. What else right now this week? That's happening. And of course, well, if you want to catch me on socials anywhere, it's at Larry Nemecek on Mastodon also, as well as Twitter and YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. It's Larry's Trekland. Please like and subscribe if you haven't yet. Share the thing. Portal47.net. It's, well, if you're a backstager, and who's not these days, you want to know all those people that you're going to start hearing from because the actors are being a little quieter at cons. And we're going to have some of them at Vegas, thankfully. Can't wait to share some stage with them and help them get their word out live, and with maybe a new audience that's used to just looking at actors and might be open to seeing the incredible, not just the talents in the work, but realize how much happens on a Star Trek episode or any other episode that was part of the show way before the actors ever get involved. The actors are the cherry on top, but there's a whole cake underneath, and probably a lot of icing that's underneath it too. So before I hit any more tired metaphors, just want to say thanks everybody for being here. Hope we settled some questions there floating around about the strike and SAG. And just remember, are you a member? If not, don't worry about it. And if the strike is asking you, if the unions are asking you to do something in support, they will ask you. But whenever you see something about support or topics or influencers, if you see any of that and you're not a union member, don't worry about it. That's the easiest advice to give. Other than that, gang, thank you so much. I hope everybody is, stay well where you are. Stay healthy. Do all the things, including watch out for heat. Take care of yourself. And yeah. Stay woke. Do all the things. check the sources, being one of the main ones. Truck well, everybody. And if you're in San Diego, I will see you San Diego, 1 o'clock on Sunday. The panel is from 1 to 2. The great Liz Kosklowski and Kit Sherlin, who are two of the art directors who worked with Dave Blass on that third season of Picard, are going to bring their own dog and pony show. And I'll help them get the word out. And then there'll be a little signing afterwards. That's my one panel this year at Comic-Con. Otherwise, I'm going to be a tourist and go see what else I can soak up. Other than that, I'm waiting on my next set of viewing episodes in advance. My screener's not here yet. I'm going to watch those old scientists as soon as I can. But yes, we will see you next Tuesday, gang. Truck well, everybody.